Good morning, everybody. Happy hump day. Today, we're going to talk about something that I would say is probably a little controversial, but it shouldn't be because I think we make this into a bigger battle than it really should be. And that is truck checkoffs. Now, before you turn this off, thinking it's going to be boring, I'm not going to walk through how to do a fucking truck checkoff. That's not going to happen. I want to deal with kind of a mindset that we have about these things, and I will be the first to admit I have struggled with this because I have had times in my career where I was like, fuck this shit. I'm too tired. However, checking. What? I can't talk today. Sorry. I haven't had enough caffeine kick in yet. So, truck checkoffs. Well, why is this so fucking important? And a lot of people give a lot of excuses for why they don't do a thorough checkoff. And I get it. I hear the whole, oh, well, I don't have enough time. Bro, I used to show up 45 minutes early to work. Now, I'm not saying that has the prescription for everybody, but because that was my choice. But I would work on those trucks where you would hit the ground running and you had no time to catch up at all. So I would show up fucking early. One, so I could relieve the off-going crew because, it's really nice when your relief shows up early so that you can get off on time. But it gave me time to go through and check off the truck. Now, that particular service where I did that most, where that was my biggest habit, every single truck was identical. So I had the truck memorized. So I just start on one end, work my way through, make a list. Personally, I pulled off extra stuff not to give back. Now, if there was like a ton of stuff that we don't use often, okay, cool. There's no sense in us having, 3 extra amps of bicarb. It's just, you just don't use it enough. It's not that big of a deal. But, extra supplies I would just put in a box so that as I went through calls, I could restock from that box and only put on a resupply list what I needed that wasn't in there. So it kept me organized. I'd always be able to tell you either what was missing on the truck or that I had already restocked it. That's a little bit harder when you don't have identical trucks, but if you have the same unit, same vehicle, like me now, it's a lot easier to do. Just go through because you know where everything is, boom, 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 get it checked off and done. All right, that's cool and all. Why does it fucking matter? Well, it matters when you're on a call and you need shit and it's not fucking there. You need to bring in your fucking bags. I hate having to keep beating this drum, but anyway, that aside, assuming you bring in your bags, if you don't have enough oxygen in your portable tank and you have to CPAP somebody, what you gonna do? If you don't have a functioning intubation handle and you need to intubate somebody, what the fuck are you gonna do? If your suction's not working and you need to suction somebody, what the fuck are you gonna do? Yeah, there's some things we have redundancy for, but there's a lot of things we don't. So if you don't have shit, you're up shit's creek and you're gonna actually hurt people. So yeah, it's pretty fucking important to check off your truck. Now, do you need to count every single Band-Aid? Well, no. But there's a lot of stuff you should count. There's a lot of things that you should count. And I don't care even if you have a logistics team. Because there are agencies that literally you show up and there's been a whole team that's gone through and restocked your truck, all that stuff. Great. You still need to lay eyeballs on everything. You need to go through your bags, make sure they didn't miss anything, make sure you have all your drugs appropriately, make sure that everything is where it should be. Because not only is it embarrassing to not have what you need, it's also detrimental to patients. And if you didn't take the extra few minutes to check through stuff and you're missing something and something bad happens to a patient because you didn't have that thing, that falls on you. So yeah, this is something that needs to become a habit. Is there redundancy in that kind of a situation where if you have a logistics team already, why do you need to go through and double check everything? Well, redundancy saves asses. That's why you should be doing med checks with people. When you're about to give, especially controlled substance, do a quick med check. I don't care if it's a shit kicker patient and you're running around, blood everywhere, all the stuff. You need to verify this shit with people. Because how many times, what we do, what we don't see in the news is, oh, this paramedic triple checked their med administration and the patient benefited from it. You never see that in the news. What you see is this motherfucker gave the wrong medication and fucking, you know, unalived somebody. That's kind of how that shit works. So if you don't want to be that poster child that then causes, new policies and new frustrations for literally everybody fuck else, on top of the harm that you've caused a patient and their family for the rest of their fucking lives, check off your truck. Stop bitching about it. It is your responsibility to make sure that everything is there. That should be your top priority when you get to fucking work. You turn off your fucking phone, or hey, put on some music. Make it a thing. I love listening to podcasts or music while I'm checking off my truck. It's part of a ritual now. If you make it a habit, if you make it a ritual and you add fun to it, guess what? You'll do it every time. I used to have one of those little, like, red pill, I think it was a JBL, I think it was a JBL speaker. Yeah. And I would bring that with me to work. And I would, flip on some music, basically turn it into a party in the back of the truck while we were checking it off. It was great. It was a ritual. And I never had anybody bitch and complain about it because I would just start doing it. And if you wanted to help, cool. If you didn't want to help, I didn't fucking care. I enjoyed doing it. And that saved my ass so many fucking times. Having everything you need is the most important part of this job because without it, you are going to hurt people. On top of the fact that you're just going to look like a fucking dumbass. And what's that going to do? That's going to hurt the reputation of EMS as a whole because I can't tell you how many times I have showed up on calls and people are like, yeah, the last crew was out here. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have anything. They were just incompetent. All right. If you're so worried about how you put the stretcher back together and like fold the straps and all that stuff, be concerned about how you check off your truck. And I know this sounds like, making a mountain out of a molehill, but it's really not. It really isn't because think if EMS came out for your loved one or for you and they get out there, let's say your kid is having a respiratory emergency and they come out, let's say it's croup or something that's progressing, it's getting worse and worse and worse. All right, they get out there, they don't have racemic epi. You're going to be a little pissed because the first question is going to be, well, why don't you have it? That's the first question I'm going to ask. If you're supposed to have it, why the fuck don't you have it? Think about any number of emergencies that you or a loved one could have, and people are either withholding treatment or just don't have the equipment to do it. How does that make you feel? Pretty fucking shitty, pretty fucking mad, I'll bet too. So if the crew comes out for you or your loved one and they don't have critical supplies, that's pretty infuriating. What does that do for your impression of that crew? It's pretty bad impression. Well, how do you think the average person feels when that's their only interaction with EMS? You want to be respected by the public? Be respectable and actually do the right thing. Because let's play this out. Let's say you have a critical patient. You're missing some critical equipment. Patient suffers as a result of it. Next thing we know, 6 months later, you're getting depositioned in court. What excuse do you have? Because just saying, oh, well, I just didn't check off my truck. Well, why? Because I didn't. Okay, cool. Fuck you. Any attorney is going to have a fucking field day with you. So, yeah, it's important. And I understand we have busy days and there's times where you hit the ground running and you don't have time to go through your bags. That does happen, and I get that. But if that's happening to you all the time, there's two things you can do. One, you can always take it up to management and see how that goes. And hopefully, and I have seen places that will actually adjust policy to accommodate this. I have seen places that will actually change their there some of their operational logistics to accommodate people being able to check their trucks off before they go in service. Cool. And some people are like, oh, well, it's only 15 minutes. You can do a lot in 15 minutes. You can do a fucking lot. If you actually show up prepared for work, you can do a lot in 15 minutes. This also requires you to show up on time for work. Different story. But so that's one option is, going to management, saying something about it, addressing it. Cool. Other option is show up earlier. Find some ways to make yourself more proficient at that. And you solve the problem. That's what I did. I said, hey, I don't have enough time. So let me just show up earlier so I can, get a head start on this. At least get some of the truck checked off before we catch a call. And it always works out. It's always a good thing. There's nothing wrong with it. So take responsibility for your shit. Take responsibility for your truck. That is your toolbox. Because without your tools, you are just an educated investigator. That's all you do. You're literally just a first responder. You're not even an EMT because even EMTs need their tools. If you don't have your tools, you literally just have a paramedic brain or an EMT brain in a meat suit. Awesome. Check off your damn trucks. If you learned something, good. Share it with your friends. If you were offended, even better. You really should be. That's all I got for you guys. Be safe. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye bye.